Greetings, fellow slingers. Welcome back to Roll the Hard 20 podcast. Once again, your trusted Dungeon Master Brian fills the role of both handler and interviewer as I bring to you, from the dust of creation, another episode of Rolling for 20. This time, I have with me showrunner for the Redacted Reports, a Delta Green podcast I happen to enjoy myself, Tiana Wren Hansen. You know, if you happen to enjoy these kinds of venues that we put on few and far between, please write into the show and let us know. You know, as I've said in the past, as always, you can reach us at rollthehard20podcast@gmail.com or visit us directly at the website at rollthehard20podcast.com. And just like everybody else in this new millennial year, you can find us on any one of our social media platforms, including our YouTube channel at rollthehard20. But I'm not really going to dominate this interview with this intro, so I'll tell you what, why don't we just warm up our dice and top off our glass as Roll the Hard 20 podcast presents Handler on Handler. Sounds a bit wrong, doesn't it? Or does it? How have you been? How have you been?
Oh, busy as a heck, but good. How about you?
I've been doing really well. I've been trying to catch up on a lot of your season 1 episodes, actually. And I got to say, I've got questions for you and everything before I lead us in to the show. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Fire away.
All right. Greetings, fellow slingers. Welcome back to Roll the Hard 20 podcast. It is I, your trusted handler, Brian. And with me, I have a very special guest, Tiana Wren Hansen of the Redacted Reports, a podcast that runs Delta Green, a game put out by Arc Dream Publishing. Welcome to the show.
Thank you kindly.
Yeah. Have you ever done an interview or anything like that?
Not so many. I mostly just chat with people. I'm not used to doing interviews and stuff, so first time for everything, I guess.
You know, I've done this a couple times mostly with podcasts that I listen to personally, and it's been probably about 2 years since I put something on, but it was mostly the shows that I was really charged up about talking to the hosts and stuff, that I was like, yeah, and I caught a hold of your show. I forget how I found your show, actually. I think it was through some social media. And I was looking at something for Delta Green, and I think you populated in one of my feeds, and that's when I friended you and then started following your show and everything. I was like, yeah, I really like the show. So
yeah, I think that was on the Delta Green Facebook page that Shane Ivey runs.
Yeah, that's right. It's funny because he was kind of messaging me because a while back I had ordered the Future Perfect modules from Drive-Thru RPG. And then I sent it to Lulu to have it bound because they hadn't released it. And so I took some pictures. I was like, yeah, check this thing out. And he wrote me back on a message. He's like, yeah, you can't put that out there. I'm like, okay. So I took it back. It was one of those things, but it was kind of cool to have a little bit of a banter back and forth with him, you know, like what he was talking about with the book and everything else that's coming down the pike and stuff. And I'm like really charged up and excited for that, like Impossible Landscapes. I can't wait for that to drop.
Oh my gosh, I've heard so many interesting things about that. And I mean, just playing through Extreme Ophelia, which we played in the season 1, that man has an interesting way of looking at things. I'm very interested to see what else comes out of that.
Definitely. So Delta Green is definitely a game that is deep in my heart too. In fact, I think it's quickly overcoming my D&D itch, which is what the show's basically built on. But I've got a really good artist friend who put out our logo for Roll the Hard 20, and then he converted it for our Delta Green with the 20 as a green triangle, and he's one of the agents when I run the Delta Green. Him and my other friend that I've known for like 30 something years, we all get together, and you know, we're not playing remote. We actually get together and play. So it's really deep and cool.
I'm so jealous.
You know, I was going to ask you because your audio is really tight. Are you guys all in the same room, or are you guys still remote?
We're still remote, and I don't think that we're ever going to be able to be in person because I don't know if you've gotten to that point yet, but after season one, we changed handlers, and the
I was
new
gonna get to that. Yeah,
yeah, but
Tom's leaving.
Tom has left, yes, but the new handler is in Arizona, so there is no physical way for all five of us to be in the same room, short of, I don't know, a special live broadcast or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, do you guys play via Zoom or something, or do you guys
Yeah,
just Discord? Okay, that's cool.
yeah, we play on Zoom, and then I have everyone record onto Audacity so that the audio is very clean. My degree is actually in theater, and part of that was a sound production class, and that was where it all started for me, building soundscapes and surrounding words with them.
Yeah, I noticed that you add like a lot of Foley to your shows and in the music and stuff, and I really like that too. I do a lot of the like I'll do some royalty free music at the
Mm-hmm.
very subliminal on the things that we run or when combat engages, which isn't a thing for Delta Green really. It's always that eerie spookiness to it. But
Yeah,
so you do all your own editing on the show, huh?
I do.
What do you think of that? You like doing that?
I like doing it. It is a very time consuming process because I mean, I'm working with five separate tracks, one for each of the players and then one for the handler. And I'm going through and cleaning everything up and making it nice and smooth and then putting it all into one file and cutting out the extraneous stuff. So it's definitely a time consuming process. I'm working on what will be episode 2 of season 2, and I'm about a half hour in, and it's taken me a couple days to get that far.
I've noticed that like because when we're playing every Wednesday night, we do it via Zoom, and it's easier just to put the whole thing up without going
Mm,
through it and cutting up the audio or anything. It's more raw. But when we record in our rage room, it usually takes me for every hour we record, it takes 2 to 3 hours to edit, to go through and get the little nicks and the knocks and the coughs and stuff out and
mm-hmm.
tighten it up and sometimes move some of the dialogue around so it's a little more seamless and it makes better sense and stuff like that. But yeah, I've always liked the editing though. I've had a couple of the guys on the show say, oh, I'll pick up the slack and I'll do it if you want. I'm like, yeah, I like doing it.
Right.
Their hands in there. So
And it's a lot of fun too because you can really shape the way that the story is told by being able to do that. Like I cut out I mean the banter is fun, but we're also playing federal agents who are doing a very, very serious thing. So sometimes the banter takes away from that. So I pull that out and
yeah,
put that in outtakes for other people later.
that's what I like. I like putting the bloopers on the back end or stuff. But sometimes some of the like with the two guys that I run with, and sometimes I'll have a third person in there, but we've got such a shorthand that the comedy is always there, and I like that. But because they know when to strap it in and say, okay,
Yeah.
we need to delve into this, and you know, there's no levity involved with that aspect of it. But that's cool. So do you don't you're not a handler, right? Or you said that you were looking into doing something like that?
I may well take on being a handler at some point. I have dipped my toes into GMing with not Delta Green Cheese with Dungeons and Dragons,
Oh, okay.
and I'm going to be doing something with a charity live stream this weekend for Monster of the Week. So that'll be playing around in different systems that I know as a player and taking it from the other side. I have the handler's book for Delta Green. That thing is a blunt force trauma
Yeah, it's like
weapon.
a just this Mongo tome of the past, you and it's
Yeah.
got a lot of lore in it. I was really surprised. I felt like the agent's handbook covered both ends of being a handler and a player and stuff, but the handler's book really gives you that mythological
Yeah.
history of the game, stuff that sometimes I'll just look through it at night when I'm going to bed and I'm like, wow, that's really cool. Or if I'm looking at it on my tablet, I'll take a screenshot of it so I could,
Mhm.
delve more into that later on and stuff. And
What a thing to read right before going to bed, though.
right.
I'll bet your dreams are weird.
Yeah, they're all over. I'm totally guilty. In everything I do in my dream, I'm guilty. Um, but you said so you play Dungeons and Dragons. Are you currently in any other games then, or?
I'm in a lot of other games. I sat down and counted up all of the games that I'm in at one point, and including the redacted reports, I think I'm in 9 or 10 separate games.
Wow, that's got to take up
Yeah.
a lot of time. Is that every week or is that spaced out or how's
It's
that?
it's So it's spaced out. Two of the games that I'm in are on the Quest and Chaos live stream side of things on Twitch. So I show up and I play, and it's a lot of fun. One is Dungeons and Dragons, and one's Call of Cthulhu. I play Monster of the Week with the Roll for Weird crew, and then a bunch of the rest of it is home games. So
Until about like a year and a half ago, I had never even heard of Delta Green. I'd heard of Call of Cthulhu, but it was always a period game. It took place in the 20s or the 30s or something like that. And I had found a couple podcasts that I had listened to on them, and I was like, well, this is really interesting. And then one of my favorite podcasts ran like a short Delta Green, and it like hooked me in. I was like, wow, this is just what I was looking for to get away from the sword and sorcery aspect, and bring it up to date, not in the 20s but in the modern era with the cell phones and the weapons and the eerie intrigue. And I really enjoy this game completely. But I see that you guys just finished up your 16 episodes,
Yes.
and I'm still trying to get through those. And like we had mentioned earlier, Tom, I guess, is leaving the show, and you've got another handler in Arizona taking over now. Okay, that's
Yes.
cool. I'm just kind of going down the list of all my little things. So basically, when you're putting together one of your agents, how do you delve into your inspiration for building this character? Like, is there music, or is there a movie or a television show that inspires you to say, I want to build that right there?
Sure. So for Rowan in particular, I'm a huge Dresden Files fan, and have been for well over a decade at this point. I love those books. And I based Rowan very strongly on Murphy, who's the Chicago Police Department cop that is Harry's liaison. So, she's small, she's tough, she's blonde, and can break pretty much anyone that she comes across, because she's been doing martial arts since she was about yay tall.
Okay.
But also very professional and very smart, and has to deal with all the weird stuff that Harry brings into her life. And I was like, I want that, but a little bit taller, because I'm short and I'm tired of always playing short characters. Because Murphy's like 5 foot nothing, I'm 5'4", so Rowan's 5'8". Just go up by 4-inch increments.
And I'm sure some of the listeners, they're into the Dresden Files. I've never seen or read any of those, so I'm like, tell me more about that kind of stuff. But I've always kind of envisioned something like that, a supernatural, where you're not really sure what you're seeing until it starts to evolve into not really the monster of the week, but whatever's been going on. It's like, the Wendigo, like the early seasons.
Yeah. Oh God, the Wendigo. But the Dresden Files is very much it was one of the first like urban fantasy book series.
Oh, okay.
And it is Harry Dresden, who is a wizard in Chicago, and he advertises in the Yellow Pages. He's like, I am a wizard. I'm not going to do endless purses, love potions, or any of that nonsense, but I help you find stuff. I can do all of this stuff. And woven throughout is this secret world of, vampires and werewolves and the Fae. Queen Mab and Queen Titania are players in this game.
Well, that sounds like something I really need to like get more hands on. I guess it's been going on for several years at this point. It's funny because I just recently found Supernatural like 2 or 3 years ago. I was like, hey, has anybody heard of this show? It's awesome. I think it's brand new. I'm like, where you been, idiot?
15 seasons later.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because I was telling my group when this is before all the COVID stuff came out, and so it had been like 3 years ago because we had just started recording here. I was like, I just found this show on Netflix called Supernatural. Anybody heard of that? And they're just all laughing at me like, what an idiot,
Yeah, I came across Supernatural because I'm a big Doctor Who and Sherlock fan, and those three fandoms tend to run in much the same circles for some reason. I don't know why Supernatural got hooked in with the two British shows, but here we are.
Hey, there we are, right? So basically, I always like to ask questions of people when I say, okay, now you've been at other tables, or you run multiple games, or you've been in multiple games. Have you ever had a troubled player? And if so, what did you ever do to take care of this?
As a GM or as a player?
Either one of them. I mean, if you've ran a table and you had somebody that became a problematic individual, or as a fellow player and you see somebody that's being that way.
There was one player at a table that I was at who did not understand the system that she was playing. I think that's probably the best way to put it. She wanted to be a very particular, like Indiana Jones kick-ass archaeologist type of character, and was getting really frustrated because she wasn't getting to be. We were playing Call of Cthulhu. You don't get to be really heroic in Call of Cthulhu.
No, not
The
when you're
best you
losing
can do is,
sanity, like sweat coming off your brow all the
oh
time.
my god, yeah. Yeah, I was able to work within the system, but I was also like, I'm an opera singing knife wielding assassin.
Hmm.
Sure, this is very 1920s. Why not? So
Why
I
not?
basically built a rogue in Call of Cthulhu. It was fun, but she was very frustrated because she felt like the DM was nerfing her, and didn't express frustration until it turned into an explosive point, and we wound up having a very long conversation with the players and the GM, and she wound up leaving the table partially because of it.
Now that's a tragedy that people can bring themselves to be part of the group. Now, what have you done for bringing people to the hobby? Have you done anything like that to
Yeah.
inspire people to join your table?
I talk about the things that I'm into. You and I are friends on Facebook, so I'm sure you see where I'm just like, oh my god, Lord of the Rings, oh my
Yeah,
god,
I see that all
oh
the
my
time,
god,
and I was
Doctor
like, oh,
Who.
I like it. I like, just push the like button and stuff. But yeah, I like how you like the fantasy and stuff. But how,
Mhm.
has that generated people to follow, doing the same thing like that too?
Yeah, so I talk about the things that I'm into all of the time. Everyone who is in the Delta Green group came in large part because I was able to be like, hey, I'm really into this thing. They started listening to the Quest and Chaos stuff. They started wanting to play, and then we're like, hey, how do we make this happen? So we played several offline games of D&D to get people up and running. Ben, who plays Rooster, is now running a full-on Eberron campaign
Oh, Eberron's
for.
awesome. I love that.
Oh, it's a fantastic setting. I was in that game for a while. I had to step back because I was just in so many games.
Yeah.
But he tells me all the stuff that's going on. He shares the lore with me. He tells me about the sisters, and I'm just like, this is insanely big. But I will take personal pride in the fact that Seth and Ben, and Ambrose and a couple of other people that came in because I'm super noisy and enthusiastic about the things that I'm into.
That's great. Yeah, I've got a like my right hand man on the show, Junior. He actually got into playing D&D from some of the podcasts that I would say, hey, you got to listen to this, you got to listen to that. It's really funny and stuff. And where I just one day I was like, hey man, if we can do this, do you want to do a
Mhm.
podcast with me? He's like, yeah. So then I asked all the guys at the comics store, hey, I'm gonna do a podcast. I'm gonna take this stuff home. Do you guys want to join us? If not, then. And everybody was like, yeah, totally, let's do that, let's do that. So we started getting this stuff ramped up, and within a couple of weeks we started actually recording, rather crappily, I might add.
It's always crappy when you start.
Yeah, I mean, we started learning about stuff that we need to have, like table covers and shock mounts, and then eventually the headphones so you could hear when people are messing with the dice and stuff. And
Mhm.
but it started getting really good and tight, and then we started weeding some of the people off the table, and some of the people had to move on their own accord because they were taking jobs and stuff. But we've got a really
Sure.
good group. But I've got one of my really good friends is in Colorado, so he'll never be joining us here, unfortunately. So we're
Yeah.
trying to work something out for the Dragons demand. I think we're gonna have him zoom in and have his mic lead go into the mixer and see if we could do that.
I could see that working. Yeah.
It's like a 3.5 to XLR, and it's supposed to be able to go right in. And people have been saying it'll work, so I'm gonna see. We're gonna
It
try it out
should.
next week. So
It's always worth a shot.
yeah,
Fingers crossed on that.
yeah, no kidding. $15, I'll spend the money. We'll buy the cable. Totally. So, is there anything else you want to go over? I mean, this is your time. We've got a little bit of time. I usually run this for the Rolling for 20 segment, which is we usually go for 20 minutes and we digress.
Mhm.
And the time is yours to do whatever you want. If you got any questions or you want to promote yourself or you want to say anything that you're interested, this is your time.
Well, and one of the things that I will say is that I feel like the Redacted Reports has become fairly successful actually over the last like 4 months that we've been up. I've only been playing TTRPGs for about 3 years.
Okay.
I did a hard dive into it because I moved into a house with three other guys, all of whom played D&D, and
That's
they were like,
awesome.
"Hey, we're going to start a home game. We don't want to leave you out. Do you want to join?" And I was like, "I've never played D&D. Sure, let's do this." And I built a half elf bard, which is about as stereotypical as you can get, and I had a blast. And
That's
then I
awesome.
right, and then I found Quest and Chaos, and it's just kind of been TTRPGs all the way down.
Ironically, now that you say you've been going with reports for about 4 months, I remember downloading, I think, 2 or 3 episodes over Christmas because we went to Florida to visit family and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and so I had them on my phone, so I was able to listen to some of them while we were on the airplane and stuff. And I remember walking around this. Like next to the beach and stuff, listening to it. I was like, yeah, that's cool. It's just, that's what I'll do is I'll download different podcasts so I could get a feel of fellow podcasts and see what they're about. I want to see
Yeah.
which ones work, which ones, talk over each other, which ones have really bad audio, and not to demean them at all, but to see where the benchmarks lie,
Yeah.
where I'm at, my audio wise, or what my show's at and stuff. And try to improve the show or see what's successful on other fronts. So, but yeah, I have to say that with the Delta Green stuff, running my show through the fantasy aspect with D&D 5e, it's been difficult because it's so saturated
Yeah.
with other shows that I get a lot of good hits when we're running a Pathfinder adventure path. But when I started running the Delta Green, like my listenership just bounced to the roof. I was like, whoa. I mean, we're on YouTube, and it seems like those have the greatest viewings is all of our Delta Green. And they're not even visual. They're all audio. So it's like, well, I guess they must be enjoying it. So, but yeah, I mean, this game has a lot of legs. And so listening to your show really focused me in on like good audio and good editing production and stuff. So you got something good going on there. I mean, if somebody like me, I'm taking notice of it. So
Yeah, I appreciate that. And the audio has always been something really important to me. That was one of because I mean we have a Patreon, and one of the things that I said early on was Patreon funds need to go to everyone getting a new microphone. That is super
yes,
important to me. I don't like the headset microphones for recording, which one of our players had at the beginning, and it worked. It was functional, but his audio is so much better now because he has a better microphone.
and I've got one of my guys. He needs to get a better mic. Everybody else has got good mics except for Nick. I think he's still using the computer mic, which is it's serviceable, but it's not as good as we want it to be. But
Right.
and with our Patreon, we do put it back into the show. We buy cables, we buy mics and stuff, especially when we're back in the garage and everything recording because it's all carpeted and stuff. But it's like the show was never designed to be via Zoom. It was a matter of urgency that we had to keep putting something out. You can't just let your show die on the vine. So I was like, well,
Yeah.
once everything opens back up, we'll get back in as soon as possible. And I think we're looking at it probably cusping in about 3 weeks. We'll have everybody back in the house again. And yeah, totally. I'm got it crossed right now. That's a
Yeah.
way to celebrate 4th of July, man.
Man, what that would be a great thing. We're looking at doing the same with Quest and Chaos. I will say, and I don't know if you've experienced this as well, but having to do stuff over Zoom, I mean, it's exhausting and it's the screen fatigue and everything else, but it
Yeah.
also really forces me at least because I can't like reach out and move my miniature. I have to describe what I'm doing, and it forces me to think a lot more about what I'm doing. So I hate everything about this. I can't wait to be back in person with
Yeah.
everyone. But I do think that it's helped force me to rethink how I play the game. Have you run into anything like that?
Only in that I've told the guys because I think they started getting lackadaisical because we went to Zoom and they're like, well, we could do this or we could put it on Roll20 and stuff. I'm like, well, the thing is that at the end of the day, it's an audio podcast.
Right.
They can pull it down off YouTube, but it's got to translate as theater of the mind at the end of the day. So whatever you do, you have to directly describe what it is you're doing. Even when we're in the garage and we have the maps and the minis and we're doing this and that, we still manage to describe what the actions are. And we'll take a picture of the map and we'll take a picture of the minis and post it to the website and stuff. But you have to be able to convey. And it took me a few tries to remember. And somebody would say, don't just say you moved them over there. Say, move to the north about 20 feet closer to wherever so-and-so is at, and describe the room a little, so you make sure you describe your actions and the rooms and what the people look like. But I think with Zoom, it's one step removed from actual live play.
Yeah.
And so I know you go heavy on your editing and stuff, but I try not to. But I tell the guys, we can have no dead space, no down talking. Everybody's got to fill the air, and we got to keep it going down the tunnel, because I don't want to go through it. I really don't want to go through and edit, what we've done. In fact, when we recorded last night, I'm glad we didn't have our little Zoom thing last night, because I think I got a little hammered. I was pretty bad. And I was like, they went into this tavern. They were talking to the guy that built this manor, and he was pretty hammered. And at one point, Junior's like, am I talking to you, or are you in character? I can't tell who's who in this scene right now. Like, I don't know, man. I'm not above licking the bottom of this shot glass. We're totally going on. It's just, I don't remember waking up hungover in a very long time as I did today. So I'm feeling much better. We're doing well, but yeah,
lots of water, ibuprofen,
all day long. And he was just as bad as I was too, because he works right next to me at work, so we see each other all day long. But yeah, it's just with the Zoom, I know that everybody's got to keep moving. You can't have any dead space, because then it looks wonky if you cut it. And people are watching the video or whatever. The audio is different, but the video just looks janky. So
yeah,
and that's our thing.
There's ways to deal with that, but it is such a pain. So yeah, I agree. And in a video format, trying to deal with that is just, it's easier for me on the audio side, because I can be like, oh, hey, I see 10 seconds of silence while we were thinking about something. Bye.
You could, and it's so nice. Like, I don't use Audacity. I use GarageBand when we're recording audio wise. And it's easy for me. I try to do Audacity when I had a PC, but running the Mac, it came with a suite. So I was like, well, we'll just use this. And it seemed really easy. And then I use iMovie for all the editing and adding the sounds and stuff to the Zoom video and stuff. But yeah, I know what you're talking about when you see the dead space, or you see like a small little blip and you're like, somebody just coughed or said, or whatever, or a tongue click or something.
Oh God, the tongue clicks.
Oh yeah. It's like, how can you guys still be doing that? So I go through and cut that, drag it over, stitch it up, and it seems to go much smoother that way. So, but so do you run any other shows, or is this the only show?
So the Redacted Reports is the only show that I am the editor and producer on, as well as, a player. I am a player on Quest and Chaos and a couple of their shows, Dragon of Icespire Peak and Great Dane Society Down Darker Trails. So those are the like shows that I'm involved with, and I'm heavily involved with Quest and Chaos. We're getting ready to talk about starting campaign 2 of Chaos Agents here soon. I'm very excited.
Oh, yeah, there's your plug. Oh, yeah.
There you go. That's my plug. Check out Redacted Reports. Check out Quest and Chaos. Those are my 2 big
Where can they get a hold of you if they want to follow you? Or
I am on Twitter as Vanna1895. I also am one of the people who runs the Redacted Reports Facebook page. So if you say something on there, I'll probably see it. And my messages on Facebook are generally open. I'm there as Tiana Wren Hansen, REN.
REN.
Well, most people think like the bird, and it's different.
Okay.
So yeah, that's me.
Well, that's you. And you know what? I want to thank you for your time. I think we're, unless you have anything else you want to add, I think we're going to keep it short and
short
direct
and
to the point. Yeah, totally short and sweet. But yeah, I'm really glad to have had you on the show. And I look forward to listening to season 2 right after I finish season 1.
Yeah, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts when you finish season 1, because I don't know where you're at, but it goes from nice and investigative to ramp up, and it just doesn't slow down after that. You know what?
Before we wrap it up, there was actually a few questions, and for some reason I thought I had put it down. I guess I didn't, but I was going to run Extremophilia until I
Okay.
heard you guys run it. I was like, okay, because I was starting to decide what I was going to do with the guys on the next thing. We ended up running.
There's so many modules. I get it.
Yeah, no. Gosh darn, people are going to kill me for this one. I can't remember what I just read. You know why? Because I'm studying Hourglass, and I'm actually studying Future Perfect, and I'd have to figure that out. Oh my gosh!
We're
Holy,
actually looking at running Hourglass in the future, and we're season 2 plug Ex Oblivione.
yeah. I'm gonna find it right now. You're gonna have to hold on a second. I
I can
can't
hold
believe
on.
oh, Victim of the Art.
Ooh, I'm
That's what
not
we ran,
familiar.
and so when I heard you guys running Extremophilia, I was like, well, I'm not going to do that one next. I'll try to figure out what I'm going to do after that. I was thinking like the last equation or whatever, but I think it's either going to be Hourglass or the first part of Future Perfect. It's going to be one of those two things. But what I was going to ask you was, how did you guys decide on Extremophilia?
So Tom was the one who brought Delta Green to us. We already had our gaming group at that point, and he was like, I've been reading about Delta Green. It's a really cool system. He and I played together on the Call of Cthulhu game in Quest and Chaos. So he knew that I already knew Call of Cthulhu. And he's like, this is that, but with competent investigators, which the Great Dane Society is not.
Yeah.
But he was the one who brought it to us, and we all said that sounds like a really great idea. And he was the one who brought in Extremophilia. He said that he liked it. I don't remember why he said he picked that one in particular. I think. Oh wait, no, I do, because it best suits all of our characters' backstories and professions. So it's an EPA investigation. We have River, who's EPA. We have we have medical stuff going on. Rory's a doctor. Rooster is just always good to have around when you're dealing with people like Breckenridge. And then Rowan, who's the FBI agent. FBI goes everywhere. So it was a really good module to show off all of our strengths.
Yeah, I had started reading a few pages into it, and then when I found your podcast and I realized what you were doing, I was like, okay, I got to move on. And it's funny because I actually heard a podcast. They started doing a Victim of the Art, and I was like, all right, I'm going to listen to it. I just want to see how they did theirs, and everybody puts their own stamp on whatever it is they're running.
Absolutely.
And I think that what we did with Victim of the Art, I've had a couple people write into me and message me that they want to know how I did this and that. And somebody even asked for my notes. So I sent out my notes, and then somebody else said, hey, I want to copy those too. Sent them out. And so I have no problem people using it because it had been slightly modified. But when I listened to the other shows, Victim of the Art, I was like, okay, they're doing it a little different. But I didn't know what it was at first until they started talking about the FBI agent Carson. I was like, is he in more than one AP? And then I realized what they were doing. I was like, okay, well, I still like what I did with mine, so we're gonna keep going with it. Yeah,
That's fair.
but I thought, you know what? Maybe I'll do one of what they've done earlier, and I'll put my own spin on that and see how people do it or whatever. But I mean, they've got like 12 APs right now, and
Sure.
they're really well done. I mean, looking at those, and I was like, yeah, Hourglass has got that whole like cult aspect to it. I'm like, yeah, I think we're gonna
Yeah.
probably either do that, probably do that one. I like that one.
Yeah, we're planning to do Hourglass, but Ex Oblivione is all about cult, and we don't want to do Ex Oblivione and then Hourglass, partially because Rowan's already having a hard time.
Yeah, and then
She's not a fan of cults.
and then you don't also want to retread right out of the gate too.
Exactly.
Now, you guys, I take it you guys did Last Things Last at some point.
Yes, we actually
Yeah.
did that at the that was our unrecorded session 0. So if you ever hear us make reference to Shaver Lake, that's our Last Things Last.
Yeah, I heard somebody say something about the septic tank with a hatch on top. I was like, they did that because when we rent it, one of our guys, Sam, he has a cabin in Big Bear, so I used his cabin as the cabin. So we already knew all about it, and like they were describing the hallways that they were going down and where this is at and that's at, and it made visualizing it much clearer. But yeah, that's a really good short scenario. That's still creepy as hell at the ass end of it, man.
It was so creepy. And we were able to do that one in 2 sessions, if I remember correctly. And it was after the first session that I went to Tom and was like, what if we did this as a podcast? And I knew that I was volunteering to do the editing and everything, but I was like, this group has such good chemistry that I really feel like this is a story that we can tell as a podcast.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and then, I could add some sound effects and take out things like Ben clearing his throat very loudly because, he do that.
Yeah, or like coughing, sneezing, people heavy breathing into the mic, and you're just trying to get it right before somebody says it. You gotta try to
Yeah. Oh, sometimes.
Or the word like. Cut that.
Yep. Or I've gotten better about having a pause instead of one of the filler words for myself, just because I prefer that. It makes it a lot easier to edit.
I totally agree. Well, if you're ever looking for an extra agent or you want to be part of the show at some point, let me know. We'd be more than happy to have you on board. We've always got an extra window in our Zoom. So
I appreciate that. And we have a guest agent in right now for Ex Oblivione, but I'll keep you in mind.
That'll be great. Well, until then, I guess warm up your dice and top off your glass, and we'll catch you next time on the next interview. Take care. Thank you for joining us once again on Roll the Hard 20 podcast. Remember, you can find us and subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and iHeart Radio. And if you like what you're hearing, please leave us that 5-star review. You could also contact the show directly at rollthehard20podcast@gmail.com or head on over to the website at rollthehard20podcast.com. And be sure to check out the galleries. We got a lot of really interesting stuff posted there. And finally, join us on our Patreon page at patreon.com/rollthehard20podcast. There are ways for you to help out the show and pick up swag. So until next session, keep your dice warm and your glass full as you roll those hard 20s.